everyone, and welcome back to The Girl with the Shovel. I'm Angela, and today we're going to be trimming and or propagating our Monsteras. Okay, so there are two main reasons why you might want to trim your Monstera. One is, I actually have an example for each one of these. One is if it has gotten a little lanky, leggy, tall, kind of just not looking that great, right? And I'm going to tell you how to fix this as well as how to trim it, okay? And our second reason why we might want to trim a Monstera is to propagate it. Now I've got this guy here that I'm going to be dividing later, but right now I'm going to trim a few of these starters here, a few of these stems, and I'm going to be propagating them. So those are our two Monsteras we're going to be trimming today, and let's get into it. So a few quick tips about Monsteras is, first off, we're not trimming to make this Monstera more bushy or full. That doesn't really work. When you cut a Monstera, it will have one stem. You trim off that one stem and it will produce 9 times out of 10 one more stem. Okay, so it's not like some of our other plants that we constantly trim and pinch back and it creates many more leaves and many more stems coming out. That doesn't happen with Monstera. So if you want your Monstera to look a little more full, then I would plant multiple stems in the same pot. But you also have to be aware, because then they start competing for nutrients and water and all that stuff, and they're not as healthy. So if you're doing that, just be aware that you're only trimming it to produce one more stem. And if you want it more full, then put multiples in a single pot. So on to trimming your Monstera. So we're gonna start off with this guy. Now this one is very leggy. I was testing out exactly how low light our Monsteras can grow in. And obviously it grew, but it did not do well. Okay, so if you want more plant care information, you can check out my video on Monstera plant care, where I talk about exactly what happened, exactly how much light Monsteras do need, and just generally what I experimented with and how it all turned out. So check out that video about how to take care of your Monstera plant. But for trimming these guys, you really want to make sure that you leave at least 1 or 2 leaves. Now, you can kind of hard prune it if that's needed, like this one here, okay? Let me move that out of the way. It is a single stem, it has a few nodes, and then it just has these 2 leaves, okay? I can hard cut this down, and it might survive, but it might not. But as long as I propagate the tip, then I'll still have 1 Monstera. Okay, that's the only time when I would recommend you cutting it back really hard, is if you don't care if the original plant survives or not, and you're planning on propagating it, okay? So I'll show you that. I'll also show you trimming to keep it alive, and we will go from there. First, we're going to just hard prune this one back, and you see it's already got a node with a root here. You see this root here? So I'm going to leave that root because that will make it have more energy already since it's rooted. And I'm going to trim right here. Okay, and then you can see we still have 2 leaves and we have a root node right here. So we've got that root node, and that's where all of our roots are going to come out. So this is a nice little cutting that I can have to propagate to replenish this. So if my one stem that no longer has leaves, if it does not make it, I'm planning on propagating this and putting it back in. Okay, so that is a hard trim. I don't recommend it for most people unless you're confident with your propagation skills already. And now for a nice little trim where we want the original plant to survive, and we don't care as much. Not that we don't care, but we are being a little more safe, okay? To be a little more safe, make sure that it still has a leaf or two, okay? And now I'm going to come over here. Now you see this has 3, 4 leaves. It's got, I can count guys, it has 4 leaves here. It's totally the wrong shape, but I'm going to be safe. I'm going to keep 2 of the leaves here, and I'm going to cut right down here. Actually, to get that node, it's going to be right on that other leaf. So I'm going to leave 1 leaf here. I'm going to cut here, right where that thing is. So a lot of times you get a root and a leaf coming out at the same location, and it makes it a little difficult because then on your stems you can't really see exactly where that next node is. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to cut it right here. Okay, so that will leave 1 leaf here for this plant. I know if you have bushier plants, it's a lot easier. I'm going to show you with my next one. It is a lot easier, but we're dealing with a plant that's already been stressed. It's already not had a lot of light. It's already lost a lot of leaves as it's trying to stretch up and grow. So we don't have many options here, but for this, I'm also going to prep it to propagate. So I'm going to take this one here. You can see that root node right here. And there's only 1 here right now that we can see because we also have the stem, the little tip right here. We're going to start getting more leaves coming off right here. And then eventually it would grow to reveal that other root node down there. But right now we're going to remove this lower leaf. And then we have a nice root node here. Sorry, I keep twisting around. This one is a weird shape. Got a nice root node there. And then we have our stem here, okay, to propagate. But right now, this little guy right here, hopefully that will get it to start growing a new shoot, either out of this spot right here, or it will make it shoot off at a different lower one, but most likely out of that top stem, that top node, okay? Usually the next leaf comes out of, or the next stem technically, the next stem will come out of the top node. So keep that in mind when you're trimming. So we have several roots growing here. We've got 1 right here at the base. We've got 1 right here. It's kind of hard to tell because it's like the same color as the dirt here. And then we've got a root coming off right here. So every single root node, and I believe there was 1 right here. It just is, there's a little gash right there. Yeah, so that was 1, but is no longer anymore. Every single root node can produce its own stem. Okay, so when you're trimming to propagate, especially if you want multiple stems and multiple plants from 1 Monstera stem, then you want to monopolize on these root nodes and go with every single root that you have. Okay, and then here, let's see. So I'm going to, there's a little coming off here. There's 1 on the back side. Okay, so I'm not worried about the health of this plant. I'm going to maximize for propagation. So I'm going to cut it way down here. Right above this root node that I've got on the other side. I've got a root node coming off right here. And then I've got, a root node here, and I've got actually a little tiny sprout here. I'm going to leave that. This one is obviously rooted already. I'm going to trim that back to get this out of here. So now I have this Monstera cutting, and as you can tell, I've got 1 root node here with its leaf. I've got 1 root node here, And this is where there's this gash where there used to be leaf. So I'm not going to use that section because it's obviously damaged. So I'm not going to leave that on its own. And then I have another root node here with its leaf. And then I actually have this stem portion. It's kind of hard to see right there. This stem portion with a root node right here. I've actually got 1, 2, 3 that I'm going to propagate here and turn into 3 separate plants. So I'm going to cut. Once again, that damaged one I'm not going to count. And give it that one. And then I'm going to go trying to get below here so I don't damage the other one. 2 and 3. Okay, so I have a root node and a leaf joint on each one of these. And then this will actually probably, I'm going to trim off the wilted section. And these will actually root, produce a new stem through that little stem joint here. It'll activate. There's a tiny little bud right at the base of every leaf joint on the opposite side of your root joint. And so this tiny little bud will actually start growing a new stem if you're lucky and if you have a successful propagation. Okay, so there you have it. There is how you trim up a Monstera for a leggy Monstera, how to get it a bit more under control, and then a trimming to propagate to get some good cuttings. One thing you need to know is if you're trimming because it's just like overgrown and big, first up, your problem is most likely that you're not giving it enough light. It's probably more like this guy where it's just leggy and small and not looking good and all over the place, and it's probably like stretching really, really high so that it can find more light. Okay, if you want I would say if you want an Instagram worthy Monstera, then make sure that it's getting enough light. And you can trim it down like we talked about in the trimming section. You can trim it down and start with a new stem and then slowly start giving it more light, so that new stem will get you some large, healthy leaves with some really short nodes. When you talk about leggy plants, it's really that there's a very large distance between your nodes, okay? And when it gets enough light, that distance becomes small. So you're looking for a very short section between your nodes, okay? I know, getting all technical here. But basically, if it's looking crazy and out of shape, one, it could be you have too many plants in one pot, like this guy here. So you can kind of see from the back, now that I took that one out, you see how many there are here. Okay, that's a lot. So that is one of the reasons why it could look crazy, a little bushy, a little out of place. And another reason is if it's getting too tall, too lanky. You don't want to just trim off a leaf. I mean, you could. If you just take this and just trim it off right here, that is not going to do anything for you. The whole stem is going to die away, and then you're just going to have brown stems. So what you need to do is to peel off, let me get it where you can see it, is to peel off the entire leaf. Okay, so trimming this won't do anything. You got to take off the entire leaf if one of the leaves is getting out of hand. And then my next tip for if your Monstera is looking a little crazy, getting a little overgrown, check out my video on repotting Monstera. I also talk about using a moss pole and attaching it to a moss pole, and that will really help train it up and will give it a much better, more attractive shape. And then if your problem is instead light, check out my plant care video where I talk about how to properly care for it so that it looks better, so it starts giving you some amazing, gorgeous leaves. So I'll leave those links in the description below, as well as to my upcoming video, how to propagate your Monstera. Next up, we're gonna take these cuttings, we're gonna propagate them, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to get new little baby Monsteras to expand your collection. So that's how you trim a Monstera, okay? Let me know in the comments below if you prefer your Monsteras to look big and bushy like this, or if you prefer a bit more of a neat, well-trimmed single stem up a moss pole. Let me know what you personally prefer. I would love to hear from you. Drop those in the comments below. And then if you like this video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss any more amazing plant tips.